Friends, welcome back to this course Retail Management, and today we are going to discuss about the size of retail market in India. When I say the size of retail market in India, friends, you must understand that India has got a very larger and wider retail landscape, which is dominated by the traditional retailers. In addition to that, we have a large number of Indian as well as global organized retail activities which have picked up in recent times. And in addition to that, the dominance of traditional retail is still continuing, wherein if you look at it, the average contribution from the organized retail is about 15% or so, wherein a huge 85% of the market is still dominated by the traditional retailers. So under this context, I am going to give you some inputs on the size of retail market as far as India is concerned. If you look at the Indian retail industry, though they say it is highly fragmented, where 90%, some reports say they say it is 85% of the business is carried out by traditional with family run small stores. And since the dominance of traditional retail is very high compared to the other developed markets, there is a huge opportunity, especially for those large scale retailers who can enter into India and then probably set up their operations. And there are a lot of new retail formats have emerged. Let's take the example of departmental stores, hypermarkets, supermarkets, specialty stores. They are all commonly seen in our cities, tier 2, tier 3 retail markets in India. And these are slowly replacing these traditional formats, and the retail landscape is now up for greater competition. This is the happenings in the physical retailing activities, wherein if you look at the retail space, especially in the digital space, definitely there also a lot of players have entered, and now the physical as well as the digital formats are going to coexist, and thereby the Indian retail market will go for further growth in the days to come. So it is now digital, not just physical, not just digital. These two formats will coexist, which you may call as digital formats. As I discussed earlier, we have two major formats. One is unorganized and organized. You can even call it as the traditional retailers and modern retailers. The largest among all industries, if you look at it, 10% of the country's GDP and about 8% of our workforce employment comes from retail. So that is clearly indicating the kind of opportunities that retail is presenting. And only in the recent times, this much dynamism and corporate attention has been drawn towards this retail industry. I would say that in the last 1.5 decades or so, there are a lot of corporate firms, especially the Indian corporate firms, have ventured into retail. Reliance, Tatas, you also have the Birlas. All those players have their own retail arm. That's because the Indian retail industry is quite attractive. This is how you have to look at the Indian retail pie. Okay, a large amount of contribution, which is 60%, is from food and grocery. This is combined both traditional as well as modern retail activities I am talking about. So 60%, the category contribution is from food and grocery. About 8% you have from apparel. Then mobile and telecom, if you take, it is 6%. food services 5%, jewelry 4%, consumer electronics 3%, pharmacy 3%, and other categories they contribute about 11%. So this is how the entire retail pie is made up of by contribution from several categories, which includes contribution from both traditional as well as modern retailers. And if you look at food and grocery, as I mentioned earlier, the composition of this particular segment called food and grocery, as we discussed in the previous slide, it is one of the major contributors. I would say the only contributor with 60% contribution to the retail pie. So this segment, it's made up of fresh groceries, branded packaged foods. Then you have these personal hygiene products, toiletries, and there are also some unprocessed groceries. All these are part of this. And as far as the size of this food and grocery market is concerned, about 12 lakh crores is the total size, where the organized is only 5,000 crores. The organized is just about 5,000 crores in a market which is about 12 lakh crores worth. There are a lot of key players. Of course, Subiksha, it's a history, but there are a lot of good learnings from the happenings around Subiksha as such. Or else if you look at it, Food Bazaar is there, Reliance Fresh is there, Spencer's is there. Then you have more supermarkets by Birla. So these are all the key organized players. And if you look at unorganized players, there are a lot of faceless family run businesses in every nook and corner of our markets. So in every area, residential area, even today I would say, especially this food and grocery, if you consider, there is a traditional retailer who is challenging all these unorganized retailers. There are cases where the traditional retailers challenging the organized retailers, and there are cases where the organized retailers were driven out of the market because of the power of these unorganized retailers who have been doing business for quite long time and earned the trust and goodwill of the customers in that particular residential area. Then comes to food services. If you look at food services, what are all the things that ultimately make these food services? Food services, if you look at it, fast food restaurants, cafes, okay, and there are certain catering services. All of them come under this food services. Wherein, if you look at the total size of this particular market, it is 57,000 crores, where the organized market contributes only about 4,000 crores roughly. Exactly, it is 3,940 crores. And the key players, of course, there are a lot of franchise models here, business models. McD, KFC, you have Subway, Domino's, Cafe Day, Barista, right? Starbucks, right? So there are a lot of such food service retailers are doing a good job as far as the Indian market is concerned. But still, you can see another classic example of pure dominance by the unorganized sector, where in a market that is worth 57,000 crores, just about 4,000 crores is from organized retailers. Okay. The next category is again a very promising category, that is clothing and textiles, where the fabric manufacturers and ready-made garments are primarily the composition of this particular segment. Where the worth of this segment, if you look at it, it is about lakh and 13,500 crores. That is a total size. Wherein the organized organized players, they contribute only about 21,400 crores. And you have Arvind brands, Madura Garments, Raymond's, Park Avenue, Vimal. Okay, there are a lot of such brands that are such organized brands are there in the market. But again, their contribution is just about 21,400 crores. But they are up for a big growth in the days to come. No doubt about that. This is about the clothing and textiles segment. Then we move on to consumer durables, which is again very much, growing in these days with a lot of organized players into this particular segment. If you look at the composition, they sell products primarily the televisions, refrigerators, washing machines, air conditioners, microwave, all those white goods are primarily primarily making up this particular segment called consumer durables. Furnishing also can be part of it. The total size of this particular market is about 41,500 crores, where just about 4,300 crores is from the organized players, where you have a lot of strong players. Of course, the BPL gallery is again a history, but a lot of learnings you can have. That's the reason why it is mentioned here, even though they are non-existent as of now. But because of the kind of learnings and their experience, they are still worth mentioning, and still we are discussing about them in retail classes. That is the importance of these players. We have Vijay, we have Girias, we have Chroma, again a very important player in this particular segment. Reliance Digital, another important player. So there are a lot of organized players in this segment again. Next, we move on to another segment, which is footwear, where the men, women, and children's footwear is mainly made up of. And there is 13,715 crores is the worth of this particular market, where organized is about 5,200. Relatively, I would say that this particular segment, the organized players are more in number. And if you really look at it, you have Bata, Metro, Lakani, Adidas, Reebok, all of them are doing a good job, right? And again, Reliance is into this as well, with Reliance Footprint as their format. So this segment interestingly has relatively higher percentage of contribution from the organized players, the corporate players. Then comes jewelry. Of course, this is mainly the gold, diamond, platinum, silver also can be part of it, where the organized players presence is very limited, with about 1,500 crores in a market which is worth 52,000 crores. We have Tanishq, Gilly, and we do have a lot of Kerala based jewelers who have spread their operations across the country and even in foreign destinations as well. So this is the segment jewelry. And finally, we have books, music, and gifts as another interesting segment, which is worth about 11,500 crores, where the organized market contributes about 1,500 crores. And books, musics, and gifts, very clearly they mentioned about the composition of the segment. The Landmark, Crossword, Higginbotham's, Oxford bookstores, these type of stores are in large numbers. And in some of the malls, this Landmark is operating with huge formats. In fact, they serve as an anchor store for various malls as well. So these segments are the primary segments as far as the retail in India is concerned, and this is the composition of each of these segments, and the contribution from the organized retailers you can see, and some of the organized key players of each of these segments are also discussed. So this is a kind of big picture about the size of retail in India, with specific reference to some of the fast growing categories or segments. Now the next question, obvious question, is what makes Indian retail an attractive market? This question needs to be addressed, because as students of retail, you will also have clarity when I explain or probably answer this particular question: what makes Indian retail an attractive market? The Forrester research in 2020 has predicted India's retail sector will be estimated at US $883 billion. You can imagine the size of Indian retail sector. And why the market is growing, we have already explained about that. There are several factors that contribute towards the growth of retail in India. But still, the share of organized retail is very, very limited. maybe few categories or segments where the organized retail is growing very powerfully, but by and large, if you look at it, as we discussed, 90% or about 85% is dominated by the traditional unorganized retailers. The real estate prices are falling, which is a good sign that a lot of new stores can be set up, especially in the organized side. And the working population with the median age of 24 years, and they are emerging as one of the major consuming sector, and they will fuel the growth further. And the disposable income has also increased from time to time. Exemption, this pandemic period where the economic impact is very high, probably that particular factor is not considered here, but in realistic terms, if we have to discuss, yes, the last 1.5 years is not all that great as far as the economy is concerned. And there is also by and large increase in expenditure for luxury items, which is again another interesting point that I would like to emphasize here. So we have a great consuming class which is quite young, about 24 years, and we have a large chunk of the activities still in the hands of traditional retailers. So there is a lot of possibilities for organized retail to pick up their growth further, and there is also increase in disposable income and expenditure for luxury items. All that put together, if you look at the Indian retail market, it is one of the most attractive retail markets in the entire world, I would say. And a lot of foreign firms are just waiting for the restrictions on FDI to be lifted by the government, so that anytime when the green signal is given, they are ready to set up their stores, and they have their plan for India ready already. Okay. And when we talk about the developments of retail, one thing I would like to inform here, that these developments are not just restricted to the urban market. In fact, it is reaching far out of the urban markets, even to the rural India. Which particular part I mean by rural? Any habitation where population density is less than 400 individuals per square kilometer, we call it as rural. Or where at least 75% of the male working population is engaged in agriculture, then that habitation is very well called as a rural habitation. Where there isn't any municipality or board for governance, then again it is called as a rural area. So if you look at India, we have a larger portion of our topography lying in this particular rural habitation. Now, what are the possibilities of retail in these rural areas? There is always a spurt in purchasing capacity of farmers, especially whenever they have good harvest. There will be a lot of money which is available with them. Not that they are like spendthrifts and they will spend on every category. I don't mean that, but still, when they have the capacity to purchase, their purchasing power goes up. That presents a huge opportunity for retail activities, right? So the marketable surplus of farm produce, when they get a good price for their produce, again there will be a lot of money on hand as far as these farmers are concerned. And high income combined with low cost of living is another interesting aspect. So they don't spend too much for their residential requirements or expenses, and they consist of approximately about 128 million households where the consumption still happens. And remember one thing, now technology has also reached the rural area, and the digital divide between the rural and urban area has become very narrow, and this presents a great opportunity. So definitely the consumers in rural areas are also far more technologically advanced, and they do have access to technology, internet connectivity, so they can find out their requirements. And if there are also online retailing, they have also penetrated so well. Online retailers, they have also penetrated so well into the rural market. So the rural landscape, especially from the consumption point of view, has changed a lot in the last few decades, and that presents a huge opportunity for rural retailing also. There are a lot of players in this segment: ITC, eChoupal, as well as we have Haryali Kisan Bazaar. They are also setting up. Godrej also has set up a lot of rural activities, retail activities. So this rural India is again developing very fast as a major consumption hub, wherein you cannot sell like what you are selling in urban areas, but still the consumers in rural areas, they require certain products and services which can very well be retailed out, and the organized retail is also having a lot of opportunities in such rural areas. Gone are those days where we totally don't look at this rural market as a great opportunity for sell, but today that is not the case. You have plenty of opportunities lying in the rural areas as well, and they are also developing very consistently, and that presents a good business opportunity for you. So this is about the rural markets. And coming to this foreign direct investment in retail, and as far as our country is concerned, as of now we have 100% foreign direct investment in the automatic route is allowed for single brand retail activities, wherein the brands that you sell in a particular store should be of belonging to a particular brand, one single brand. Then such retail activities 100% FDI is allowed. But 51% is for multi-brand retailing, wherein there are a lot of conditions that are available, right from outsourcing the products to employment. So the time when 100% FDI is allowed in multi-brand retailing, you will find a lot of foreign players entering into our market and try to do a good business out of it. So this is what is the FDI scenario as far as India is concerned. We can definitely look for some developments on this front, and thereby you can have the foreign players, the who's who of retail, global retail industry, will also have their presence in Indian market very soon. Some of the recent trends as far as retail in India is concerned, if you look at it, basically you can have the demand. On the demand side, you have a robust demand. Okay, according to Retailers Association of India, the retail industry itself has achieved about 93% of pre-COVID sales in February 2021. So the pandemic impact was there, but now the industry is back on track. It is getting revived so well, and consumer durables and quick service restaurants, they have increased their sales by 15 and 18% respectively. So there are certain categories where the growth is multifold, and there are other categories where the pre-COVID sales levels have been almost achieved. So that means we have a great retail activities coming up in the days to come, even though there was a setback due to this pandemic. Then the innovation in financing, there is collective effort of financial houses and banks, especially to help these retailers, and consumers are also enabled by these financial institutions by giving them the scope for credit. So the availability of credit by these financial institutions is making consumers' purchasing power little better than what they have as of now, because they can own things on credit. That will definitely fuel the sale of retail firms, and especially if you look at it, consumer durables, even apparels, you can buy on easy installments, okay, EMI. So that extent, the financial institutions, both banks and non-banking financial institutions, are giving you enough scope by giving you the access to credit with the zero down payment, 0% interest, 0% processing fee, and things like that. That makes customers, coming and then buying a lot of products. Thereby, retail sales is also growing. Then there is also increasing investment. The foreign retailers, they are entering into the Indian market. The FDI inflow has increased. Okay, about 3.47 billion US dollars between April 2000 and 2021. So the last 2 decades, the FDI inflow has increased. And Indian retail sector alone, if you look at it, 6.2 billion US dollars from various private equity and venture capital funds have come into Indian market. Okay, so this is again a good trend, and you have plenty of retail activities which will be fueled due to this. And next is the policy support. About 51% FDI is allowed in multi-brand retailing and 100% in single brand retailing. And GST, which is introduced by the central government, that has paved way for single unified tax system. So that is now easy for understanding as well as adherence by the retailers. So the policy support is also quite good, and the government is supporting all those policies which will definitely help the retailers, which will increase the consumption. So that is why we say it is advantage India, because the entire outlook of this particular industry is very, very attractive. And the retail market, if you look at it by 2025, the future prediction forecast is that the retail market will touch 1000 billion US dollars. Okay, and if you look at the category wise breakup, I would say that the apparel and footwear will grow and contribute about 9.8%. This is about the organized contribution I'm talking about. Consumer durables about 9.2, jewelry accessories 7.1, health and entertainment about 3.7, home decor and furnishing, another promising category which may contribute about 2.7. Of course, this is the actual contribution as far as 2019 financial year is concerned, maybe the time before this pandemic. Beauty and personal care, it contributes about 2% and the rest for 0.5%. So apparel, consumer durables, they are significantly contributing, and also this jewelry and accessories market. So the recent trends are also favoring the retail activities and the consumption pattern as far as India is concerned. So definitely, friends, I would say that the size of Indian retail market is quite substantial, and the projections are also very, very favorable. And the Indian e-commerce market by 2026, the forecast says it will touch 200 US dollars, 200 billion US dollars, right? And you see, there is a phenomenal growth from 2021 to 2026. In the next 5 years, it is going to almost, 2.5 times it is going to grow, right? And the online retail market, specifically, if you look at it, 73 billion US dollars by 2022. That is the projection. And the government initiative, relax sourcing and investment rules for supermarkets. So definitely you will find a lot of supermarkets being set up in the days to come. And again, FDI policies. Government may also revisit and then rethink on allowing higher percentage of FDI in multi-brand retailing as well. So the way ahead, what is there in stock for us? As we discussed, India is among the least saturated of all major global markets in terms of its penetration of modern retail format. So definitely there is a huge demand for the organized retail activities in the days to come, and there is an opportunity for foreign players also to enter, and Indian corporate houses can also expand their operations. And many strong regional and national players across categories as well as formats, you name it, they are there in retail industry. And most of these players, they are going for rapid expansion, because they know very well they are learning what they have learned through their learning curves will definitely help them to set up a larger number of stores and try to cover wider markets. And real estate developers are also gaining out of it, because when there is a fast growth in retail, definitely they will also have the kind of providing the kind of qualitative environment for consumers. Shopping malls as a format are fast growing. Even malls have been set up in tier 2 cities, and partnering among brands, retailers, the franchisees, investors, and malls, all that have improved the infrastructure as well. So, this is how, friends, the future of Indian retail, it presents us a very bright and at the same time inviting opportunities. So, looking at this, we can say one thing: as of now, the Indian retail market is on a path of growth, no doubt about that, and it is up for a vertical growth across categories. And in the days to come, maybe in the next 1.5 decades, you will find this particular industry being the most happening industry in India because of the kind of dynamism of the market, the kind of attraction of global players into India, and as well as the changing consumer preferences and advancements in technology. So that is the kind of things that we are having. So friends, with this, I would like to wind up this particular session. So if you look at the takeaways from this session, we discussed at length about the size of retail market in India. In addition to that, we also discussed about different segments and their contribution into this particular industry. So by and large, if you look at it, this is going to be a very interesting and very sizable industry, and the kind of segments that we have discussed and the kind of players, especially in the organized space, are also very large in numbers, significant in terms of their investments also. I'm sure this would have given you some idea about the size of retail market in India. And I will meet you in another session with yet another interesting topic about retail. Till then, bye bye. Wish you a great learning. Thank you.